Imagine a teenager, quiet, unremarkable, standing before a judge in a packed courtroom. The judge looks at him with a mix of impatience and mockery, dismissing him as nothing more than a lost kid caught in a grown-up world. The courtroom laughs. The tension in the room is thick, but it's all a game, or so it seems. What if this teenager, standing in front of that judge, isn't who he says he is? What if behind that innocent exterior lies something so remarkable, so unexpected, that it could change everything? Today we're about to dive into a story that flips the script on everything you think you know about appearances, power, and what it truly means to be underestimated. What happens when the person everyone laughs at is the one who ends up laughing last? This isn't just a courtroom battle. It's a story of deception, brilliance, and a twist no one saw coming. Keep watching, because by the end, you'll be questioning everything you thought you knew about this teenager and the very system that mocked him. In a crowded courtroom, a 17-year-old teenager sits quietly, his posture straight but relaxed. His name is Ryan, and at first glance he looks like any other awkward teenager, unassuming, perhaps even shy. But as he's called to stand, there's something different about him. It's hard to put your finger on, but there's an odd sense of confidence that doesn't match his age. Ryan is here today for a simple traffic violation, nothing more than a small mistake. But the way he carries himself doesn't suggest he's there for something as trivial as that. He's known around town as a quiet, reserved kid who prefers the world of books and reasoning to the noise of high school life. But don't let the quiet demeanor fool you. Ryan excels in his studies, especially when it comes to logic, law, and reasoning. This isn't a typical teenager. As the judge calls the court to order, Ryan steps forward, facing the intimidating room with a composed expression. The prosecutor, a middle-aged man with a clear sense of superiority, glances at him with disbelief. The judge, an older man with a sharp wit, smirks at the young teen standing in front of him. "Mr. Ryan, I'm sure you're eager to get this over with, but let's be clear, this isn't a place for games," the judge says, almost as if mocking the teenager. The prosecutor chuckles under his breath, clearly finding the idea of a 17-year-old attempting to navigate a court of law absurd. Ryan simply smiles slightly, his calm demeanor oddly reassuring, but something about it makes the judge pause, just for a moment. The mocking continues. Ryan's face remains neutral, but there's a hint of something more beneath the surface. A calm before a storm. As the judge goes on with his opening remarks, dismissing Ryan's case as nothing more than a childish mistake, Ryan's eyes narrow with focus. He sits up a little straighter, the slight smile gone, replaced by something sharper, something far more calculated. Then, without hesitation, Ryan speaks. "Your Honor, I understand that my age may cause you to question my ability to comprehend the law, but with all due respect, I've done my homework on this case. I believe there's a fundamental issue with the citation that was issued." The courtroom goes silent, and for the first time the judge's smirk falters. Ryan continues, his voice steady and sure. "The law on this matter isn't as straightforward as it seems. According to Section 17-43B of the Vehicle Code, the circumstances surrounding the traffic stop must be reconsidered, as the officer failed to observe the correct protocol in ensuring the infraction was valid." A murmur ripples through the room, but Ryan's focus remains entirely on the judge. The prosecutor's smile fades, his eyes narrowing. He clearly wasn't prepared for this. "Mr. Ryan, I'm afraid you don't belong in this courtroom. You should be out there in high school, worrying about tests and sports, not trying to sound like a lawyer." The judge scoffs, a dismissive wave of his hand signaling for Ryan to stop speaking. But Ryan doesn't back down. His voice grows stronger, more authoritative. He doesn't falter. "I'm not asking for leniency, Your Honor. I'm simply asking for the law to be applied fairly." The room is on edge. Ryan's composed, unwavering tone stands in stark contrast to the judge's increasing frustration. The judge attempts to cut him off again, but Ryan persists, citing legal precedents, reciting statute numbers and challenging the very core of the case. It's as if he's playing a different game altogether, one that the judge and prosecutor never saw coming. The tension in the courtroom builds, and the once skeptical crowd starts to shift, unsure of what they're witnessing. A young teenager, no more than a kid, talking about legal theories like a seasoned attorney. It's a sight that feels almost surreal. The judge grows impatient, visibly irritated by Ryan's persistence. Just as it seems the judge is about to issue a ruling, Ryan stands up, this time with a purpose. He reaches into his bag, his fingers sliding across a file. Everyone watches in silence as he slowly pulls out a thick legal document. The courtroom is still. The judge's smirk falters entirely, his gaze locking on Ryan as the teenager confidently places the document in front of the judge. "This, Your Honor, is a document proving that I'm actually a licensed attorney," Ryan says, his voice unwavering. The judge blinks, taken aback. "Excuse me?" Ryan's eyes remain steady. "I'm one of the youngest licensed attorneys in this state. I've been practicing law for the past year, while masquerading as a regular teenager in order to experience the legal system from a unique perspective. And this traffic violation was my test case." The courtroom goes silent, the tension turning into shock and disbelief. The prosecutor stands frozen, unable to process what he just heard. The judge's face goes pale. Ryan, still calm and controlled, watches as the reality of the moment sinks in. The entire room is in disbelief. A montage begins to play in the background, quick flashes of Ryan studying late into the night, his head buried in law books, his fingers flying over legal documents as he passed the bar exam at just 16. Hours spent listening to court cases, mimicking the courtroom dynamics, perfecting his legal knowledge. His motivation laid bare, a desire to push the boundaries of what people expect from a teenager. To prove that age has nothing to do with competence, that intellect and drive aren't defined by a number. And now, in front of everyone, Ryan has just proven that nothing, absolutely nothing, was what it seemed. The teenager who was mocked, belittled and underestimated is the one who walked into that courtroom with more legal prowess than anyone could have ever imagined. The courtroom falls into a stunned silence. It's as if time itself has come to a halt. For a moment, no one knows what to do or say. The judge, once so sure of his authority, now stares at the document in disbelief, his fingers nervously tapping on the bench. The prosecutor, who moments ago had been dismissing Ryan as just a kid in over his head, is visibly shaken, his mouth opening and closing, but finding no words. Ryan, on the other hand, stands unfazed. His calm presence in the room is almost magnetic. He doesn't need to gloat, nor does he feel the need to prove anything further. The courtroom, once filled with laughter at his expense, now holds its breath in anticipation. The judge finally breaks the silence. I need a moment," he mutters, retreating into the chambers briefly. The prosecutor's eyes narrow in confusion, but there's no denying the weight of the situation. Ryan's poised, and it's clear he's not just a teenager with an exaggerated sense of confidence. He's something far more formidable. The crowd is restless. They whisper amongst themselves, unsure of what they've just witnessed. Was this a fluke? Or had they all just witnessed an unparalleled moment of brilliance? Ryan stands still, confident but unassuming. His hands folded, the quiet hum of the room around him is a stark contrast to the internal storm happening within everyone else. Then, the judge returns. "Mr. Ryan," he begins, his voice slower now, a far cry from the mocking tone he had earlier. "I'll be the first to admit I underestimated you. You've certainly proved me wrong." The words hang in the air, heavy with the weight of humility. Ryan remains calm. His voice when he speaks is steady and confident. "Your Honor, my case wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about showing that the law doesn't bend for age. Knowledge is not limited by years." There's a deep silence that follows. The judge looks at Ryan, his earlier arrogance now replaced with an unexpected respect. He takes a deep breath, scanning Ryan's face as if trying to find a sign of the teenage boy everyone else had thought they knew. Instead, he finds someone far beyond his years. The judge continues, his tone now tinged with humility. I must admit, you've handled yourself with maturity and knowledge far beyond your age. But I have to ask. He pauses, meeting Ryan's eyes. What brought you here to this courtroom with all that you've accomplished? The tension in the room grows once again. The answer to this question is more than just a curiosity. It's the key to understanding Ryan's entire journey. The room quiets as Ryan prepares his closing argument. He's already won the case, but this moment feels different. This isn't about the case anymore. It's about proving his larger point. Ryan speaks with a clarity that resonates deeply in the courtroom, each word deliberate, thoughtful. I'm here, Your Honor, not for sympathy, not for validation, but because the legal system has always fascinated me. I've studied it since I was young, not just for the knowledge, but because I believe in its power to bring fairness. I've lived a life where people assumed I couldn't understand, couldn't contribute. I wanted to see if I could walk in and have the system judge me, rather than the world around me judging what I can or cannot do. His words are delivered with the calmest conviction, but they hit harder than any dramatic speech. Ryan isn't just proving his case, he's showing the world that capability doesn't have an age limit and intellect isn't measured by years lived. As Ryan finishes speaking, the room hangs on his every word. The judge's gaze softens, and the prosecutor looks almost apologetic, still trying to process what's happening. The judge's voice breaks the silence. You're right. It's easy to assume that age equals inexperience. But I've learned today that wisdom doesn't come from time alone. He shifts his gaze to Ryan. It's clear to me now that you've earned your place in this room, and not just as a student or a teenager, but as a legal professional. The judge nods slowly, acknowledging Ryan's brilliance. Your case is dismissed, and I suggest you continue your work as a lawyer. There's much you could contribute. The judge's tone is respectful now, one of admiration rather than mockery. And before he can finish, the crowd, once skeptical, breaks into soft applause, their earlier judgment now replaced by genuine appreciation. The prosecutor, whose confidence had once been so unshakable, stands frozen. It's clear that Ryan's brilliance has turned the tables in a way no one could have predicted. The judge looks at Ryan once more, his final ruling clear. The case is dismissed, Mr. Ryan. And for what it's worth, I think your legal expertise has earned you more than just an apology from this courtroom. He pauses, his eyes narrowing in thought. In fact, I think you might be the one who could teach us all a thing or two about the law. Ryan smiles slightly, but his response is calm. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm only trying to do my part in making the system better. The judge nods, impressed by Ryan's poise. Consider this a lesson to all of us, to never judge anyone by their age, but by their capabilities. As the judge dismisses the court, the room stirs with whispers. Ryan leaves the courtroom with quiet confidence, walking past the prosecutor, whose face is still frozen in disbelief. A final shot lingers on Ryan's calm expression as he exits the courtroom, the applause fading, the reality of what just happened settling in. The teenager who was once underestimated, mocked even, is now a legal force to be reckoned with. Now, after everything you've just witnessed, what do you think? Was Ryan's move truly brilliant, or did he cross a line? I mean, how far should the law go when it comes to age, experience, and capability? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think teens should be allowed to practice law? If you're as amazed as I am by Ryan's genius, go ahead and give this video a like. And don't forget to subscribe, because if you want more jaw-dropping, unpredictable stories like this one, you definitely won't want to miss what's coming next. Hidden geniuses are out there, and they're not always who we expect. So, Would you want to see more stories about young minds who defy the odds and surprise the world? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions, and maybe even share some more stories like this one soon.